Robert Griffin III, 2011 Heisman. At Baylor, Robert Griffin III was electric. In 2011, he threw for nearly 4,300 yards, scored 47 total touchdowns, and turned a program with no football history into a national contender. His speed and arm strength won him the Heisman Trophy and made him the second overall pick in the 2012 NFL Draft. And at first, it looked like he would deliver. Griffin's rookie year in Washington was one of the most exciting debuts ever. He passed for over 3,200 yards, ran for more than 800, and scored 27 total touchdowns, while leading his team to the playoffs. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year and looked like the face of the league. Then came the injuries. A torn ACL in the 2012 playoffs changed everything. Griffin rushed back too soon, and by 2013, he didn't have the same burst. He struggled as a passer, his confidence wavered, and coaching changes didn't help. Over the next few years, he bounced between starting jobs and backup roles before eventually fading out of the league. Griffin's career wasn't just short, it was a case study in how fragile even the brightest talents can be. One year, he was unstoppable. The next, he was fighting to stay on the field. Tim Tebow, 2007 Heisman. At Florida, Tim Tebow was one of the most dominant college football players ever. In 2007, he won the Heisman after throwing for 32 touchdowns and rushing for 23 more, becoming the first player in FBS history to post a 2020 season. His mix of power running, leadership, and big game performances made him a legend in Gainesville and a two-time national champion. The NFL was different. Drafted by the Denver Broncos in the first round in 2010, Tebow struggled with accuracy and mechanics. But in 2011, he caught fire. Taking over mid-season, he led the Broncos on a string of improbable comebacks, finishing 7-4 as a starter and winning a playoff game against the Steelers in dramatic fashion. For a brief moment, it felt like Tebow's unique style could work, but defenses adjusted. His completion percentage hovered under 50%, and coaches didn't trust him in a traditional passing system. After Denver signed Peyton Manning in 2012, Tebow was traded to the Jets, where his role evaporated. A short stint with the Patriots followed, but by 2015, his NFL career was over. Tebow remains one of the most polarizing Heisman winners. In college, he was nearly unstoppable. In the NFL, his limitations as a passer were too much to overcome. Johnny Manziel, 2012 Heisman. Johnny Manziel was a phenomenon at Texas A&M. As a redshirt freshman in 2012, he became the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy after passing for over 3,700 yards, rushing for 1,400 more, and accounting for 47 total touchdowns. His improvisational style, quick feet, and highlight reel plays, like his upset win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa, made him a national star known as Johnny Football. The Cleveland Browns drafted him in the first round in 2014, hoping his magic would translate to the NFL. But from the start, Manziel struggled with maturity, preparation, and consistency. On the field, he looked overwhelmed, throwing just 7 touchdowns to 7 interceptions in 2 seasons. Off the field, reports of partying, lack of focus, and clashes with coaches dominated the headlines. By 2016, Manziel was out of the NFL after just 15 games. Attempts at comebacks in the CFL and other leagues never materialized into real second chances. Manziel's career is often remembered as one of the biggest what-ifs in Heisman history. His college brilliance was undeniable, but in the NFL, the spotlight burned brighter than his game. Chris Weinke, 2000 Heisman. Chris Weinke's story was unusual from the start. At 28 years old, he was the oldest player ever to win the Heisman Trophy. After spending 6 years in minor league baseball, he returned to Florida State, became the Seminoles' starter, and in 2000 led the nation in passing with over 4,700 yards. He capped off his college career as a national champion in 1999 and a Heisman winner the next year. The Carolina Panthers drafted him in the 4th round of the 2001 NFL Draft. He started as a rookie, but it quickly became a struggle. Carolina went 1-15 that season, and Weinke threw just 11 touchdowns against 19 interceptions. He lost his starting job the next year and spent most of his career as a backup. Over 7 NFL seasons, he appeared in only 31 games, finishing with 15 career touchdowns and 26 interceptions. His last start came in 2007 with the San Francisco 49ers, after which his playing career was over. Winky's age, lack of mobility, and inconsistency as a passer made his transition tough. While he was a legend in Tallahassee, his NFL career never came close to matching his Heisman hype. Gary Beban, 1967 Heisman. Gary Beban was one of the great college quarterbacks of the 1960s. At UCLA, he was known for his toughness, leadership, and playmaking ability. In 1967, he won the Heisman Trophy after throwing for 1,359 yards, rushing for another 227, and accounting for 15 total touchdowns. His most famous game was the 1967 Game of the Century against USC, where he battled through injury but came up just short against O.J. Simpson's Trojans. Despite his Heisman credentials, Beban never made an impact in the NFL. He was drafted in the second round by the Los Angeles Rams, but never played for them. He was then traded to the Washington Redskins, where he spent 2 seasons as a backup quarterback. He appeared in only 5 games, attempting just 10 passes total in his entire NFL career. Beban's lack of arm strength and athletic limitations didn't translate to the pro game. While he was a cerebral, efficient college quarterback, the NFL demanded more physical tools, and he quickly faded out of the league. In the end, Gary Beban's legacy remains tied to UCLA and his Heisman season. In the NFL, he's remembered as one of the many Heisman winners who couldn't carry that success into the pros. Troy Smith, 2006 Heisman. At Ohio State, Troy Smith was as decorated as they come. In 2006, he led the Buckeyes to an undefeated regular season and a spot in the BCS National Championship game. That year, he threw for 30 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions and won the Heisman Trophy in a landslide, one of the largest margins ever. He looked like a poised passer with mobility, the type of quarterback who could thrive at the next level. But the NFL never played out that way. Drafted in the 5th round by the Baltimore Ravens in 2007, Smith entered the league with questions about his size. Just 6 feet tall, and his arm strength. He started a handful of games for Baltimore over 3 seasons, showing flashes but never consistency. In total, he threw 8 touchdowns and 5 interceptions across 20 career games. He later tried to reboot his career with the San Francisco 49ers in 2010, even starting 6 games, but the team moved on quickly. After brief attempts in the CFL, his professional career was essentially done. For Troy Smith, the Heisman season was the peak. He'll always be remembered as a Buckeye legend, but in the NFL, his skill set just didn't translate into a long-term role. Eric Crouch, 2001 Heisman. Eric Crouch was the definition of a college football star. At Nebraska, he ran the option offense to perfection. In 2001, he rushed for 1,115 yards, threw for over 1,500, and accounted for 25 total touchdowns. He led the Cornhuskers to the national championship game and won the Heisman Trophy as the best player in the country. But his game didn't translate to the NFL. Crouch was only 6 feet tall and known more for his running ability than his passing. Pro teams doubted his arm strength and accuracy. When the St. Louis Rams drafted him in the 3rd round in 2002, they immediately tried to convert him to wide receiver. Crouch resisted, eventually quitting before the season even began. He made brief attempts at comebacks, including stints in NFL Europe and the CFL, but he never played a snap in a regular season NFL game. Crouch's Heisman season was thrilling, but it highlighted the gap between college systems and the pro game. At Nebraska, he was unstoppable in the option. In the NFL, there wasn't a role that fit him. Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman. At USC, Matt Leinart was the face of college football's biggest dynasty of the 2000s. In 2004, he threw for over 3,300 yards, 33 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions, leading the Trojans to a national championship and winning the Heisman Trophy. Leinart wasn't flashy, but he was efficient, calm under pressure, and surrounded by stars like Reggie Bush and Lendale White. He left college as a 2-time national champion and one of the most decorated quarterbacks in history. The NFL told a different story. Drafted 10th overall by the Arizona Cardinals in 2006, Leinart was expected to be their franchise quarterback. He started 11 games as a rookie, but inconsistency and injuries slowed his progress. By 2007, veteran Kurt Warner had taken over, and Leinart never regained the starting job. Over 8 seasons in the league, he threw just 15 touchdowns and 21 interceptions, bouncing between backup roles in Houston and Oakland. Coaches questioned his work ethic and competitiveness, and his lack of arm strength made it hard to succeed in pro systems. Leinart went from being the most polished quarterback in college football to a forgotten name in the NFL. His career is often cited as proof of how big the gap can be between college dominance and professional success. Terry Baker, 1962 Heisman. Terry Baker made history in 1962 when he won the Heisman Trophy at Oregon State, becoming the first and still the only player from the school to claim the award. A true dual threat before the term was common. Baker passed for over 1,700 yards, rushed for nearly 500 more, and accounted for 15 total touchdowns that season. His most famous moment came in the Liberty Bowl, where he broke a 99-yard touchdown run, a play that remains one of the longest highlights in bowl history. Baker was taken first overall in the 1963 NFL Draft by the Los Angeles Rams, but his pro career never matched his college glory. The Rams quickly realized he didn't have the arm strength or pocket passing ability needed for an NFL quarterback. They tried shifting him to running back and even flanker, but the transition never worked. In 3 seasons, he played sparingly and never started a game at quarterback. After leaving the Rams, he had a short stint in the CFL before retiring from football entirely. His athleticism had shined in college, but in the pros, he lacked the specialized skills to stick at any position. Terry Baker remains a legend at Oregon State and a symbol of early Heisman history. In the NFL, though, he's remembered as a classic case of a college star who couldn't find a place at the next level. Pat Sullivan, 1971 Heisman. Pat Sullivan was a star at Auburn, a quarterback who combined accuracy, leadership, and poise. In 1971, he threw for over 2,200 yards and 20 touchdowns in an era where passing wasn't nearly as wide open as today. He built a legendary connection with receiver Terry Beasley, and his consistency across 3 seasons earned him the Heisman Trophy. The Atlanta Falcons drafted Sullivan in the 2nd round of the 1972 NFL Draft, hoping he could bring the same spark to their offense. But his NFL career never took off. Over 4 seasons in Atlanta, he started only a handful of games and threw for just 5 career touchdowns against 16 interceptions. He later spent a short stint with the Washington Redskins, but saw little action. Sullivan's struggles came down to arm strength and system fit. At Auburn, he thrived in a college offense tailored to his skill set. In the NFL, he lacked the physical tools to stretch defenses and couldn't hold on to a starting role. Despite his professional shortcomings, Sullivan's college legacy remains untouchable. He was Auburn's first Heisman winner, and his number was later retired by the school. In the NFL, however, he became another Heisman great, whose success stopped at the college level. Gino Torretta, 1992 Heisman. At Miami, Gino Torretta was the steady hand behind one of the most dominant programs in college football. In 1992, he threw for over 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns, leading the Hurricanes to an undefeated regular season and earning the Heisman Trophy. Torretta's poise and decision-making made him a winner. He went 26-1 as a starter, and he became the face of a powerhouse roster loaded with NFL talent. But the NFL didn't see the same promise. Torretta was drafted in the 7th round by the Minnesota Vikings in 1993, and right away, scouts' concerns proved true. He lacked top-end arm strength and mobility, and in a league where physical tools matter, that put him behind. Over his career, he bounced around 6 different teams, appearing in just 2 games, and attempting only 16 total passes. His lone highlight came in 1996 with the Seattle Seahawks, when he completed a long touchdown pass in mop-up duty. Beyond that, his NFL career was essentially spent holding a clipboard. Torretta's Heisman win remains controversial because many felt he benefited from Miami's loaded roster more than his individual talent. In college, he was a winner surrounded by elite playmakers. In the NFL, stripped of that support, his limitations stood out. Johnny Rodgers, 1972 Heisman. Johnny Rodgers, nicknamed the Jet, was one of the most electric players in college football history. At Nebraska, he was a true game changer as a receiver, rusher, and especially as a return man. In 1972, he won the Heisman Trophy after piling up nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards and 17 total touchdowns, helping lead Nebraska to a national championship the year before. His punt return against Oklahoma in the 1971 Game of the Century remains one of the most famous plays in college football, but his NFL career never materialized. Drafted in the first round of the 1973 NFL Draft by the San Diego Chargers, Rodgers instead chose to play in the Canadian Football League with the Montreal Alouettes. There, he was a star, winning the CFL's Most Outstanding Rookie Award and becoming an All-Star. He eventually joined the Chargers in 1977, but by then, injuries had slowed him. He played just 17 NFL games over 2 seasons, catching only 17 passes before his career ended. Rodgers is remembered as one of the greatest all-purpose college players ever, but because his prime years came in Canada rather than the NFL, he's often grouped among Heisman winners who didn't make an impact at the pro level. Danny Wuerffel, 1996 Heisman. Danny Wuerffel was the perfect quarterback for Steve Spurrier's fun and gun offense at Florida. In 1996, he threw for 3,625 yards and 39 touchdowns, leading the Gators to their first national championship and winning the Heisman Trophy. He finished his career as one of the most decorated passers in SEC history, with pinpoint accuracy and poise in Spurrier's system, but his NFL career never came close to that success. Drafted in the 4th round by the New Orleans Saints in 1997, Wuerffel struggled with arm strength, mobility, and the speed of the pro game. Over 6 seasons, he bounced between the Saints, Packers, Bears, and Washington, starting only 10 games in total. He threw for just 12 career touchdowns and 22 interceptions before leaving the league in 2002. Wuerffel's pro struggles showed how much he benefited from Spurrier's scheme. At Florida, he thrived in a wide-open offense with elite receivers. In the NFL, where defenses were faster and coverages tighter, he couldn't replicate that production. After football, Wuerffel found greater success off the field, dedicating his life to charity and community work through Desire Street Ministries. On the field, though, his Heisman-winning brilliance stayed in Gainesville. Rashaan Salaam, 1994 Heisman. In 1994, Rashaan Salaam was unstoppable at Colorado. He rushed for 2,055 yards and scored 24 total touchdowns, becoming just the 4th player in college football history to surpass 2,000 rushing yards in a season. Salaam's combination of vision, balance, and power made him the clear Heisman winner, and he left Boulder as one of the most dominant backs of his era. The Chicago Bears drafted him in the 1st round of the 1995 NFL Draft, and early on, it looked promising. As a rookie, Salaam rushed for 1,074 yards and 10 touchdowns, showing flashes of his college form. But after that, his career quickly unraveled. Injuries slowed him, fumbling became a major issue, and his consistency disappeared. Over the next 3 seasons, he never topped 500 rushing yards in a year. By 1999, after short stints with Cleveland and Green Bay, his NFL career was effectively over. Attempts at comebacks in the XFL and CFL didn't stick. Salaam's story is one of the more heartbreaking Heisman busts. He had the talent, but durability and ball security problems kept him from sustaining success. His brief NFL peak as a rookie remains the highlight of a career that promised much more. Andre Ware, 1989 Heisman. Andre Ware was the face of the run-and-shoot offense at the University of Houston. In 1989, he threw for 4,699 yards and 46 touchdowns in just 11 games, setting records while running an offense that looked decades ahead of its time. His fast tempo, deep strikes, and pinpoint accuracy made him the first black quarterback to ever win the Heisman Trophy. The Detroit Lions drafted him in the first round of the 1990 NFL Draft, hoping he could replicate that success. But Ware never adjusted to the NFL. Detroit already had Barry Sanders as the focal point of its offense, and the Lions weren't committed to building around the run-and-shoot system he thrived in at Houston. Ware struggled with reads, timing, and consistency, appearing in only 14 games over 4 seasons, with just 5 career touchdowns. After Detroit, he bounced around to short stints in Oakland, Jacksonville, and in NFL Europe, but he never carved out a meaningful pro role. By the late 1990s, his career was essentially over. Ware's Heisman season showed how dominant a quarterback could be in the right system, but it also revealed how difficult system quarterbacks sometimes transition to the NFL. In college, he was untouchable. In the pros, he never found the same fit. Archie Griffin, 1974 and 1975 Heisman. Archie Griffin holds a distinction no one else can claim. He is the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner in history. At Ohio State, Griffin was the model of consistency and excellence. From 1972 to 1975, he rushed for over 5,500 yards and led the Buckeyes to 4 straight Big Ten titles and 3 Rose Bowl appearances. His back-to-back Heismans in 1974 and 1975 cemented him as one of the greatest college players ever. The NFL, however, told a different story. Drafted in the first round by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1976, Griffin never found the same success. Over 7 seasons, he rushed for just 2,808 yards and 7 touchdowns. Numbers far from what you'd expect from the most decorated back in college football history. He was reliable, but never explosive, averaging just 3.2 yards per carry in his career. The biggest knock was that his skill set didn't quite translate. Griffin was durable, tough, and smart, but he lacked elite size and breakaway speed compared to other NFL backs of the era. He became more of a role player than a feature star. Archie Griffin's legacy remains secure in college football, an all-time great with a record that may never be broken. In the NFL, though, he became a reminder that even the most accomplished college stars can struggle to shine at the pro level. Desmond Howard, 1991 Heisman. At Michigan, Desmond Howard was a highlight machine. In 1991, he scored 23 total touchdowns, including 19 receiving, and made game-breaking plays as a runner and returner. His famous Heisman moment came against Ohio State when he struck the iconic pose in the end zone after a punt return touchdown. That season, he became just the second wide receiver to ever win the Heisman Trophy, cementing himself as one of the most electrifying players in college football history. The NFL, though, wasn't as kind. Drafted 4th overall by the Washington Redskins in 1992, Howard was expected to be a franchise-changing wide receiver. But as a receiver, he never found his footing. Over 11 seasons, he finished with just 1,597 career receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. Modest numbers for such a highly drafted player. Where he did make an impact was on special teams. Howard became one of the best kick returners of his era. His career highlight came in Super Bowl 31 with the Green Bay Packers, when he returned a kickoff 99 yards for a touchdown and earned Super Bowl MVP honors. The only pure return specialist ever to do so. So while Desmond Howard's NFL career didn't live up to his Heisman hype as a receiver, his legacy as a returner kept him relevant. In the context of this list, he's remembered as a bust at wideout, but his special teams greatness carved out a unique place in league history. Doug Flutie, 1984 Heisman. Doug Flutie's college career was nothing short of iconic. At Boston College, he put the program on the national map, throwing for over 3,600 yards and 30 touchdowns in 1984. His Heisman moment came on November 23, 1984, the legendary 48-yard Hail Mary pass to Gerard Phelan to beat Miami. That single play made him a household name and sealed his Heisman Trophy, but his NFL path was unconventional. Drafted in the 11th round by the Los Angeles Rams, who traded his rights to the Chicago Bears, Flutie's size, just 5 feet 9 inches, made teams skeptical. Early on, he bounced between the Bears and Patriots, but never secured a long-term starting job. He left the NFL for the Canadian Football League, where he thrived, winning 3 Grey Cups and becoming one of the CFL's all-time greats. Flutie eventually returned to the NFL in the late 1990s with the Buffalo Bills, enjoying a brief resurgence. In 1998, at age 36, he went 10-5 as a starter and led the Bills to the playoffs, even earning a Pro Bowl selection. Still, his NFL career was defined more by flashes than sustained success. He finished with 86 touchdown passes and 68 interceptions across 12 NFL seasons, far from the superstar expectations tied to a Heisman winner. Doug Flutie is remembered as a legend in college football and the CFL, but in NFL terms, he's often grouped as a Heisman bust because he never became a franchise quarterback. His career is a reminder that heart and creativity can carry you far, just not always to NFL stardom.